So now that we have heard about how to override classes and how to extend them, let's practice this a little bit, and that will lead us quite naturally to repeated inheritance, which we will talk about in a second, and which is very much not the same as multiple inheritance, which will be a bigger subject that we will speak about next session. So let's implement first our knight class. Our knight class will be a subclass of the RPG character class, and it will model just some very simple um, behavior. We will say that the RPG characters who are also knights have armor. So first of all, they will have a different init method. So I will have to override the init method. So whenever I create a knight character, I will introduce the usual name, strength, and dexterity and hit points attributes for the parameters of the RPG character constructor, but now I will add one more, AR for armor. So what I will do in my new knight class init method is first call the regular init method from the parent class with the first four characters, and then notice that I can call this by using super init. Okay, I can do it some other ways, but let's just stick with this one now. And now in my knight class I will have another object attribute which will be called armor, and I will just initialize it with this value. Okay, so my knight subclass will have one more armor object attribute. And what will that be used for? Well, that will be used for the fact that knights, because they wear armor, they are more difficult to hurt. So when we check their defense, we return their dexterity like RPG character objects used to do, but now we add this armor. So knights are basically more difficult to hurt. And we even overrode the strength method to signify that this particular character is of type knight. And we can check and see that now I also in the string method I also call the superclass. So now I get things like behold a mighty rando with strength, dexterity and hit points that I used to get, and now I also get a new part, a knight with knight, which should have a K here, with 6 armor. Okay, this should have a K. Okay, a knight with whatever armor, and then I get to do my combats now. I have also improved the characteristics of my rando character, which is now called Sir, in a variable called Sir Rando because he's a knight. And I can do some more combats and so on, and you can check them out. But basically, Rando now is stronger and is more difficult to hurt because he has this new extension class, this new subclass, which is knight, which allows me to model this behavior of knights having armor and being more difficult to hurt because he has better characteristics and he's more difficult to hurt. The orc in this case often misses, and then I have again enriched my class hierarchy, my behavior. Okay, but so far I have only added subclasses to the original class, so I haven't done that repeated inheritance thing. That's not what I meant by repeated inheritance. Repeated inheritance is that I can create subclasses from the original class, but I can also create subclasses from one of the subclasses. So in this sense, this new paladin class that we will create, that's a subclass of knight, it will be a grandchild class from the original RPG character class. Okay, and we can see that here. For example, I had the RPG character and I defined two subclasses, vampire and knight, and now I'm creating a paladin class. Okay, this thing that I very crudely did by doing a drawing has the shape of something called UML diagrams that are very often used for representing class relationships and so on, and that are extremely used in software engineering and so on. And I really encourage to give them a look if you want to, and if you really need to do applications with lots of classes. But today we are just going to stick with the crude drawing, showing that I have a original class, two child classes, and a child class of a child class. So this is repeated inheritance. I have inherited here and here again. So this class Paladin can access methods from the Knight class and also from the RPG character class. Okay, so let's see how that works. The Paladin class is well, created to model the fact that my poor Sir Rando character cannot hurt the vampires because all the damage he deals is of type normal. So I'm going to create a character that deals some other type of damage. In particular, it will deal magic damage. Okay, but paladins, if you have ever heard about them, are sort of like these big blessed knights. So paladins will be RPG characters, but they also will be knights. So they will inherit first from the knight class and second from the RPG character class. In particular, they will not be vampires at all. Okay, so they will not share the new characteristics that the vampire class has. They are not in the same branch in the class hierarchy. Paladins will also be knights and will also be RPG character classes. Any class is also an instance of its parent classes, but paladins and vampires will share the characteristics that they share because of the RPG characters, but they will not share each other's special characteristics. Okay, and let's see just how we did that. Well, we extended and overrode things to model this new behavior of the Blessed Knight. We extended the class by adding a new bless method, which will add a new parameter to my knight character. Every time I call bless, I will create a new attribute, object attribute called power. Okay, I added another one that's called lay on hands, which paladins are supposed to be able to do. They can put their hands on you or on themselves and heal, and this healing will work with this self power. So I have here extended the class by adding two new methods, and I will also override the swing method. What will be the main difference here? The main difference here will be that the damage that I deal, that I as an object of the class paladin deals, is of type magic. Okay, I also changed the string method, and I can see how that works for me in this cell. For example, now I'm defining a paladin object, which is called, again, its name is Rando and has some extra characteristics. Notice here that I need the armor for the knights here because I'm defining a paladin, and because I have not overrode the init method. When I called the paladin like this for the init method, it's going to go look for it in the knight class. It's going to find it here, and the knight class is going to call the init method of the RPG character class too. So I'm going to be calling these two init methods. Okay, then I can print it, and printing will call the string method of the paladin class, which itself calls the super string method, which is of the knight class. And if you remember, that one also called the one in the RPG character class. And with that I end up with something like, behold the mighty Rando with a strength 10, dexterity 7, and these hit points a knight with 6 armor who is also a paladin with 3 power, which is the part that I have added here. Okay, I added the power part with this bless method that I had extended here. And then I can print different stats, so I can still use the methods in the RPG character class or in the knight class, because any object of paladin class also belongs to the 2 classes before in the class hierarchy, and then I can use this character to fight some other characters. Okay. Here you have some exercises that you can check. The last one speaks about multiple inheritance, which we will deal with in next session, but you can have a look by yourself now if you want to. And let's just do a quick recap. We have used inheritance mechanisms to extend, to make my code have more functionalities without having to just recode the whole thing. I have used subclasses to, let's say, automatically copy all the behavior from my parent class, and then I have been able to either override or extend the functionalities of my parent class in my subclasses, in my child classes. Overriding meant that I took one method that I already had, method or attribute, and then changed it. I could change it totally, like we saw in the herd method, or I could change it partially, like we saw in the swing method for the vampire class. I could even call the method in the supper class if I wanted, using the supper reserved word. We will see in next session that I can also call methods in supper classes using the name of the classes, but let's not get too much into it now. The other method that I used was the other mechanism, inheritance mechanism that I used was extension, and in extension I basically created new methods in my child classes, in my subclasses, to add new functionalities. To end the session, we saw that I can do repeated inheritance. I can inherit from a subclass, so I can make a subclass of a subclass, and then I have all the functionalities of all the parent classes that I have, and I can extend them and override them just as I would do any regular subclass. Okay, so that's it for inheritance.